Welcome to World Toasters sponsored meeting of Rodney Lee, who will be presenting today, and he'll be teaching us a wonderful workshop on what he looks for as a business owner. With that, I would like to go ahead and do our traditional pledge. Let's see if I can just bring it up so I don't mess it up. Wait, hold on. The mission of World Toasters is to provide a mutually supportive and positive learning environment in which every member has the opportunity to develop communication and leadership skills, which in turn foster self-confidence and personal growth. And with that, I'd like to start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. So George, could you throw up a flag, please?
Can you see it?
Yeah, I have to change things on my computer.
Well, I trust you can see that flag. It's the one with the red and white stripes and the stars.
Oh, that does look like the U.S. flag. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. With that, I have the privilege of introducing, let's see here, there we go. Our special guest today, guest speaker, Rodney Lee, is the owner-operator of Office Pride of Denver, a commercial cleaning franchise. He also is a former Toastmaster, having helped found a club in the Denver area. He served terms as vice president, president of the club, and is proud of the fact that he's completed the Competent Communicator Manual. Rodney started his professional career as a teacher and a school administrator for multiple districts across the Denver area. When it was time for a change, he spent almost 4 years in the insurance world as an agency owner and then working as a trainer for new insurance agents. He had success in the industry, but was not passionate about insurance. He wanted to own his own business. And after a lot of research, he found Office Pride Commercial Cleaning Services. Rodney opened his franchise in 2008. Office Pride of Denver provides a full range of commercial cleaning and routine janitorial services to professional offices, medical facilities, industrial sites, airplane hangars, and more across the Denver metro area. In September 2019, Rodney suffered a major stroke, but thanks to amazing medical professionals that took care of him, he not only survived, but came away with almost no lasting issues. Shortly after his recovery, Rodney got involved with the Rocky Mountain Stroke Center, where he now serves on its board of directors. He wants to use this opportunity to educate others about the signs of a stroke and the services available to survivors and their caregivers after they leave the hospital setting. Rodney says his family motivates him every day. He loves being able to spend time with them, especially if they're doing something Disney related. Rodney and his families are avid Disney fans and enjoy visiting in parks, going on Disney cruises, Disney resorts, watching Disney movies, singing Disney songs, and pretty much anything Disney related. Rodney is excited to be with you today from Denver and to share with you ways to better prepare for an interview from the perspective of a person leading the interview. With that, please help me welcome Rodney Lee to the virtual lectern.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Oscar. I guess a virtual handshake at this point is what we do.
Yeah.
and then we go back to it. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here, to have a chance to talk with you. I have a PowerPoint that I'm going to be sharing with you. I'll walk through it. It's my understanding that as at the end of our time today, if you have any questions, there's going to be a question and answer session. So don't hesitate to write down any questions or thoughts as you go along, and we'll have some Q&A time at the very end of it. So, sharing my screen there. All right. So, just a quick thumbs up if you can see my presentation there. Be sure you got that. Wonderful. Thank you. So, here, this is about interview preparation, being ready for the interview, and a little bit about during the interview. But a lot of it is about getting ready for it. And so, preparation starts actually to get ready for an interview well before an interview is even scheduled. You want to make sure that you always have a current, reviewed, and spell-checked resume posted online, and also have it ready to share. Be sure it's ready to go out by email, to be attached to an online application, and to have a paper version so you can hand it to somebody if needed. Remember, don't lie or exaggerate on a resume. People will find out. And in most states around the country, it's a fireable offense if they find out that you weren't truthful on your resume or application. And another thing to think about in today's world is to review your online presence. See what's on your public social media. A lot of companies nowadays actually have people whose job it is to check your social media and look at your presence online before they even invite you to an interview. So then once you've got your interview scheduled, the trick is to do your research, know what to expect, or know where you're going and who you're talking to. Learn about the company, learn about their history, what they're good at, what customers do they serve, what awards have they won. You need to be able to speak clearly about the company. Nothing frustrates an interviewer more when they ask the question, what do you know about us? And you go, well, I kind of know. You really need to know what they are about. Learn about the leaders, owners, or officers of the company. You may run into them. You may have a chance to meet with them during an interview. If you don't know anything about them, you don't know what they look like, it's not a good thing. And if you're in a discussion and it turns out you have something in common, like you went to school in the same place, or you're from the same part of the country, or anything like that, it's always a great way to make them remember who you are. And learn about the person who's interviewing you. If you know who that is, if you're told, yeah, you're going to be meeting with this person's name, this person, learn about them just as much. And you know what? In today's world, there's so much information out there online. Use Google, go to the company's website, find them on LinkedIn, find them on Facebook. Go out and learn as much as you can about them. It really gives you a distinct advantage when you're out there meeting with them. If you can speak about them or congratulate them on an award that they just won, makes them feel really good. But the key is to do this ahead of time, make sure you really know it, and make sure you really have it down. So then a few days before the interview, yes, this is a lot of really early prep work to get ready for it, but it's much better than walking in cold. So a few days before the interview, prep and practice. You want to be sure that you've practiced answers for very common questions. There's going to be a time at the today where we're going to give you the opportunity, if you'd like, to get a chance practicing answering some very common questions. But real things that come up at almost every interview are things like, tell me a little bit about yourself. So what are your strengths and weaknesses? Things like that. So take some time and plan out what you're going to say if you're asked those. Don't make it up. Don't fly by the seat of your pants. Know exactly what you want to say. Know exactly, how long you want to take. Know exactly what you want to share. One of the most interesting things that I always find when I ask the question, tell me about yourself, people will share all sorts of things that they shouldn't necessarily be sharing with me. But it's because they haven't prepared, they haven't thought about it, they just kind of do it. In your questions, be thorough but succinct. you don't want to talk for 20 minutes, about yourself, but you also don't want to say something, you don't want to talk for 5 seconds. Be sure you tell them everything you would like for them to know about you so you feel like they get to know you a little bit better, but don't ramble on. And of course, as you're getting ready to prep and practice, be sure you have the right thing to wear to the interview, because your physical look speaks just as much as what you say. In research that they've done, they found that appearance and body language actually relates about 70% of what people think about you, and only about 30% of it is what you say. So be sure that you are very cognizant of that. So let's talk a little bit about it. Let's talk a little bit about what not to wear. No, but what to wear to an interview. Sorry, I had to throw in that little there. When you go to an interview, always assume it's business attire for the first interview, unless you're told otherwise. If someone's like, "Oh yeah, we're just business casual here," that's fine. But if they don't say anything, assume you need to come in business attire. And the key to this is you want them to remember you, not what you are wearing. Because if you think about it, you've all been to that event where there's that guy that's in like the orange suit, or lime green, or powder blue, or whatever it is. You might not remember who they are, but you remember what they were wearing. So be sure you want them to remember you. First tip: wear clothes that fit well. A nice tailored outfit. Not something that's really super tight or super loose and baggy. You want it to look nice. You want it to fit you well. You want to look at having conservative colors and patterns, and sometimes adding a splash of color. A small a scarf, or a splash of color in your tie, or a pocket square for guys. A little accent to your outfit. In today's world, a lot of people, like to dress, to really relate their personality. And that's not a bad thing at all. But when you're going into that first interview to make the first impression, again, it's really about you. You don't want to be showing up in, big colored, multicolored polka dots, or, multicolored striped outfits, or anything, be conservative, but don't hesitate to add that splash of color. One of the reasons I picked the picture here is because it really does accentuate the idea of splash of color. Like the gentleman in front has the blue shirt that's underneath. The lady next to him has the little red underneath. Those kind of splash of colors can really catch people's eyes. Go with conservative accessories. Like guys, if you're wearing your big gigantic Rolex watch, or a very large bracelet, or with women, tons of jewelry all over. Be more conservative with your accessories. If it's your personality wear those, that's great. Once you get hired and you get a feel for the workplace, if that's something that's okay, then go for it. But during the interview, let's keep it a little more conservative. So, ladies, here's some good guidelines: a nice dress, skirt and blouse, or a suit, or a skirt suit, or a pantsuit, something like that. Comfortable but dressy shoes. You don't want to look like it's just the shoes that you just happen to grab out of your closet. But you don't want them to be too out of range either. And conservative makeup and hair. Again, we're trying to make a good impression for you, and not necessarily for your looks. Same thing with men. Suit and tie, jacket and tie, pants. Yes, gentlemen, wear pants. Dress shoes, and well groomed. Look nice. Have a good haircut. If you have facial hair, make sure it's well taken care of. You want to look nice. So then as we're coming into this, the day before your interview, there's some things you want to do. So you want to be prepared. Sorry, I had to throw in the Disney reference there. When I say the words be prepared, that's what I think about. So as we go in, and this is not the morning of, this is the day before. Make sure you have everything you need. Always bring a paper copy of your resume. They might not want it, you might not give it to them, but have it. If you're doing anything that requires you to bring examples of your work, be sure you have that portfolio available. Bring a notepad with a pen. It always impresses me when people bring that and they kind of take notes as we go through the interview, because it means that they're thinking about us just as much as we're thinking about them. And also bring other requested documents. If they say, hey, bring this along with you, bring it. Be sure you know what it is and bring it along. Know where you're going. Don't always trust your phone map. It's always interesting how sometimes you can enter just one digit wrong, or put way instead of street or whatever it is, and you end up completely in the wrong place. So know where you're going, and that's a great thing with like Google Maps today. You can look up the company and it'll give you a little pin with the name of the company on the building, so you know where you're going. Be sure your clothes are picked out and prepared the day before. Don't just randomly pick something from your closet that morning. Have it all planned out, ready to go. And bring a little thank you note. I'm going to be talking about this in detail in a few minutes, but a little paper thank you note. These are ones I have made up for my business, with a little envelope. Nobody else does this, and it'll help you get noticed. So have a blank one ready to go. Don't write anything on it yet, but bring it with you. Have it with you in your portfolio. And then the night before, go to bed early. The night before is not the night to be going out with your friends and hanging out really late. Be sure you get in, you go to bed early so you can be well rested. All right, so the day of the interview, I call it total focus day. Things to think about. So be sure you get up early enough to be ready. Even if it means you're having to get up much earlier than normal, or even if it's later in the day, be sure you're getting up plenty early to be ready for your interview. Eat a healthy meal, and then brush your teeth before you leave. The healthy meal will make you feel good, and then brushing your teeth before you leave will make sure you don't leave that wrong impression on anybody that you meet at the company. Trust me, I can name a number of experiences where I've sat across the table from somebody, and they have certainly left the wrong impression when they started talking because of their, shall we say, their odor. Check your look before you leave, and also check the traffic. You may have looked it up, and the day before it was going to take you 20 minutes to get there, and all of a sudden, because of, well, I guess for those of you in Orlando know, because of I-4, all of a sudden it's a half an hour or 40 minutes. So make sure you're checking that well before you leave. Plan to arrive in the area very early, at least 20 to 30 minutes. Most people have heard this, but if you haven't, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're late, you're fired. I always tell people I would much rather arrive in an area an hour before an appointment that I have or an interview that I have, and have to like kind of hang out, rather than even be 1 minute late for what I'm trying to get to. And the greatest thing is, in today's world, especially with our technology, most of us have things we can do if we get there. Check emails on our phones, catch up on the show that we recorded last night. It's not like you're just, sitting there banging your head against your steering wheel. There's always things to do. But if you're there, even if you're there half an hour early, and you're like, okay, great, I'm here. There's the building right there. I know I'm going to be on time. Then you can hang out and be ready for it. And then go into the location about 10 minutes early. This is a personal opinion of mine, but I'll share it with you anyway. If you go in any earlier than 10 minutes, the person that you're looking to meet with is probably doing something else. And a lot of them feel like they need to stop what they're doing to come and meet and see you because you're there. If you come within that 10-minute range of when you're supposed to be there, they know you're there. They're typically almost done with what they're working on. They may finish it up and come out. But if you're there too early, it disrupts what they're doing and it makes them have a negative feeling towards you. And then be very nice to everyone you meet from the second you walk in the door. Especially in larger companies, a lot of times the interviewer, once you leave, actually talks to everybody along the way that you ran into. They'll talk to that person that sits at the front desk. What were they like when they came in? Were they polite? Do you think they were well dressed? Were they articulate? They may have somebody who comes and gets you and brings you back to where the interview area is. They're going to talk to them and ask them the same questions. Because for a lot of companies, how you treat the other people within the office is more important than how you treat the people that you're interviewing. So now, although in today's world with COVID, we have kind of a new interview world. I call it Zoom life. We're all here in Zoom life today. But some extra things to pay attention to if you're going to be doing an interview by Zoom. Check your connection speed. Make sure that you got a fast enough connection. Check out what's behind you. And so, whether you have an artificially generated background or the real background, know what's behind you and what are the people looking at. It's always so funny when I see people with things behind them, like a piece of artwork that makes them look like they have antlers coming out of their head, or a lamp that's hovering over their head, but it's so far back they don't think about that. Have good lighting. There's nothing worse when you're trying to do a Zoom interview and the person can't see you because your face is all dark. And treat this like an in-person interview. Don't do anything else different other than don't physically go to their location. Be sure you're ready to go on time. And do everything else. Dress the same. Make sure you still eat the healthy breakfast. Still brush your teeth. Put on the whole outfit. Nowadays the joke is, from here up, we look good, but you never know what's down there. When you're going into an interview, it's just as much of a mentality. And when you dress physically and you eat healthy and you get a good night's sleep and you look nice, you still feel that same way. It's going to really reflect on the interview. So during and after, the key to this is finishing strong. So at the interview, be yourself. Most people can tell if you're not being who you really are. Be yourself. That's what they're looking for. Be honest. Don't lie or exaggerate in an interview. It's the same thing as if you're lying or exaggerating on your resume. You don't want to do that. Once it's over, if they haven't said anything, don't hesitate to ask about next steps. So what's the next step, in this interview process? What happens next? Don't hesitate to ask, when would I be able to expect to hear back from you? And sometimes there's companies that, are like, well, yeah, if we don't want you, you're not going to hear back from us. When I do interviews with my company, once they get to a certain point, I let them know you're going to hear back from us one way or the other. But there's some companies that don't, so be ready for that. And then kind of as we did on the way in, thank everybody on the way out. taking a moment as you walk past, that person at the front desk and say, hey, thanks so much, have a great day, can really mean a lot, can really do a lot for the impression that you leave on the company. And here's where the thank you note comes in. Go back out to your car, take your thank you note, put the interviewer's name on the envelope, write a little thank you note saying thanks for me, thanks for interviewing me, had a great time. Maybe put one little personal detail or something in there, something from the interview. Seal it, walk back in and hand it to the person at the front desk and say, could you give this to? And that's it. All of a sudden, the person who just interviewed a little later that day goes to their box in the office and goes, oh, what's this? And it's a little thank you note from you. It'll help remember you. And then remember to follow up within the time frame. So if they've said, hey, we'll get back to you next week, and you don't hear from them, it's okay to drop them an email or to give a quick call and just say, hey, we're just calling to follow up. So those are some of my tips from the point of view of a person who does a lot of interviews. I hope it meant something to you. I hope you got some key pieces out of it. Thank you so much for coming today. Here's my contact information. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. In the world of business, LinkedIn is a fantastic place to make connections. If you don't have a good LinkedIn profile yet, go out and make one. Do some research and make one. And connect with as many people as possible on LinkedIn. I'm more picky on Facebook who I accept into my Facebook world, but I'm more than happy to accept almost anybody within my LinkedIn world because I never know who I'm going to want to connect with on a professional level. So come find me on LinkedIn. You can also connect with my business. There's my Office Pride of Denver Facebook page. Don't hesitate to contact me. Reach out to me there as well. But thank you so much, and I will turn the meeting back over to our Toastmaster.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rodney. But that was a lot of good information from somebody who's lived it. When I opened the presentation, I wanted to say something more about having a stroke. That so inspired me. My dad had a stroke in New York when he was on a business trip, and they found him, and he survived and he got back on his feet. But I know what it means, and so I just wanted to point that out before that gets forgotten. That that means a lot to me, that you could fall down and get back up, and I think that says a lot for who you are, and just want to reiterate that. So with that, we're going to be doing, as I understand, like a table topic. So I'm going to return it over to our friend Rachel, who's going to be leading us in this session. So with that, help me welcome Rachel to the virtual lectern.
Thank you so much, guys. So if you don't know what Table Topics is, it's basically a little question and answer round where we're asking the questions and you guys have the opportunity to answer. Like Rodney mentioned, the best way to prepare for the interview is to do actual interview questions. And today we want to give you guys a little taste of those interview questions. So Rodney's come prepared for us with a few interview questions. And as you would like, you may volunteer to answer one of those. Now, in typical Toastmasters fashion, we're going to time you guys because, as we mentioned before, staying in time and not talking too much is critical. You're going to be given 1 to 2 minutes to answer these questions. And you're going to see my beautiful little sticky notes pop up so that you have a visual representation of where you are in your time. When you see the green one, it means you made it to 1 minute. Congratulations, you've done a good job. When you see the orange one pop up, you've hit 1:30. You're doing pretty good, but it's time to start wrapping up. When you see the pink one, that means you've hit 2 minutes and it's about time to start wrapping up that answer. Along with getting to answer these questions, you'll also have the opportunity to have a current Toastmaster provide you a minute of evaluation feedback to tell you what you've done well and where you could do better if you're given an opportunity to answer a similar question again. You do have the option to opt out of this evaluation, and we'll ask you before you answer your question whether or not you want to be evaluated for this. With that, I'm going to pass it back over to Rodney, who has all the questions prepared for us.
All right, thank you very much. We're looking for our first volunteer. Who would like to step up for our first question? I promise the first one's going to be super hard. No, I'm just kidding. Eric. All right.
Oscar will have you eval.
Okay.
Eric, do you want to be evaluated at the end of your question?
Sure.
Okay. Let's see. Let's take this one. Eric, tell me about your greatest personal achievement.
My greatest personal achievement. Well, that's a good question, Rodney. I would have to say that my greatest personal achievement was being able to get through graduate school. Because not only is getting through graduate school an achievement in just those 4 years, it's almost like a lifetime achievement. Because you start out way when you're a lot younger, and then you go on and you work your way through high school, and then you work your way through undergraduate school, and then you ultimately get through graduate school. So you're progressing throughout your life and your career, and finishing graduate school is almost more of a culmination than it is just the process of graduate school. And so in my short lifespan, I would say that being able to finish graduate school following many, many years of hard work and studying, to me, was my greatest personal accomplishment to this point in my life. Thank you.
Thank you. So I get the opportunity to evaluate. Is that correct?
1 minute.
1 minute. Yeah, Eric. Well, of course, that's impressive with graduate school. But my feedback would be, what did that give you? Where did you go? I know that there's a lot involved with being in graduate school, but I personally know that you're a dentist, and that would be the point of that it brought you that achievement and what you've been able to accomplish as a dentist, and the kind of things you learned that you applied. So bring it full circle, and then really honing in on that great achievement as a result of that, and all the other things and the relationships and the connections and everything that you had to do for taking on graduate school. I'd probably almost front end it too, as far as how you got into graduate school, maybe a little bit, and why you were so motivated and inspired to do that.
Okay.
So that's my feedback.
All right. Thank you.
Yes.
Wonderful. Yeah, Eric, for people who are looking at that question, a lot of times what that question is looking for is, can this person, talk about themselves and be proud when they do good things?
Mm-hmm.
Are they proud of what they've done? Do they work hard to reach a goal and succeed and be happy with what they've done once they've gotten it? So that's something to look for when you're answering that question as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other next volunteer?
The question.
Wonderful.
George will have you eval.
Here we go. Tell me about a time that you disagreed with a decision that was made at work.
The time I disagreed with the decision made at work. Okay, so right now what we're doing is we're going through linking our store planograms to the actual physical stores, and what comes with that is a lot of high level, okay, this store has 3 feet of health and wellness snacks and nuts. So, and then another store has 4 feet, and then the largest store has 8 feet. And so from there, we kind of segment who has the largest assortment and how we will segment that. And sometimes we come across, okay, they want to maintain a planogram for 3 stores or more, but this store has extra shelves and they want to maintain that. I personally disagree with maintaining the higher shelving stores just because I don't see, as someone who is not so tall, I don't see how a customer could reach those items. So to me, it doesn't make sense. So that's a time where I don't really agree with our business decision. I like to give my feedback and as to why, but at the end of the day, I'll be happy with whatever the outcome is, even if it's not my outcome. That's all.
Thank you. Oh, and I apologize, I didn't ask if you wanted an evaluation afterwards.
Yeah, but I was voluntold by Rachel. And Kelsey is a fellow Toastmaster. She's used to being evaluated. All right. So Kelsey, what I saw was that you used your hands very well. You had pretty good eye contact. And what you did was outline the problem to us so we understood what you were driving at. So we had a good idea of what the shelving issue was. And then you came back and gave us your opinion. And I like that because because you gave us your opinion, because that was the question, something that you disagreed with. So you set up the stand and then you gave us your opinion on that. You weren't terribly passionate. You were trying to be kind of authoritative, but that was good. You didn't go extreme on either side, not too mild, but not too heavy on us. And then what you did was wrapped it all up and gave us one more time your opinion and why. And so I thought that was a very good way to go about doing it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, George. That was great. That question, Cassie, is you answered it almost exactly perfectly. What that question is looking for often is a person willing to stand up and share a contradictory opinion to what everybody is saying, but then are they also willing to say, okay, I understand for whatever reason you don't follow my opinion, it's okay, and I will accept whatever the final decision is. I should say good companies, so not all companies, but good companies like it if an employee is willing to come to them and say, hey, I don't really agree with this, and let me tell you why. Bad companies don't, but a good company is happy to accept that as long as the person's willing to say, okay, thank you for listening to me. I'll go along with whatever we have. All right. Anybody else? Any other volunteers? We also have a lot of people who don't have their cameras on, so I can't see if they're raising their hands or anything.
And don't be shy, you guys. I promise we don't bite. We're all very friendly. The whole purpose of this is to help you guys grow. And even if you're not looking for a new job right now, given this past year, we all know it can change in the drop of a hat.
And even if you don't have your video on, it's okay. You can just unmute yourself and start talking, and we'll call on you. We don't necessarily have to see you.
I'm of course willing to take a question.
Right, Rodney. One thing you could do is throw the question out there and see if anybody finds it in their wheelhouse and say, well, I'll take that one.
Okay. All right, I'll do that. Let's see. Let's do this. Tell me about a time you dealt with an angry customer.
Yeah, I can take that one, Rodney.
Do you want an eval?
Yeah, that'd be great if somebody
I got
could.
you. I'll do it.
All right, thank you, Rachel. So I think this is a question that everybody runs into in pretty much any work situation. In my current role, I deal a lot with cast members and their cell phones. And I think in today's world, everybody is very passionate when it comes to their cell phones. And one example I immediately thought of was there was a cast member that we recently migrated to a new billing structure. And they were a little upset because they did not receive the communication that we had sent out because their email had updated because their last name had changed. So they were coming to us very frustrated very caught off guard that anything had changed. And even though service wasn't impacted, they were still very concerned. So it was really important in that moment to acknowledge their concern, apologize, and say, you know, I understand. I'm so sorry that you are in this situation and you weren't aware of the transition that we're going through. But let me tell you about why this transition is good, because now you won't have to do expense reports anymore. And our team is actually going to take care of all of your billing needs. We're going to be your main liaison with AT&T. And I think bringing the cast member around to realizing that, you know, maybe the initial reaction wasn't the best because they didn't have that prep, but coming back around and seeing why this transition was a really good move, and bringing them back around to just de-escalate that situation.
Thank you.
All right. Kylie, I love how you came to us with an internal customer story. You see a lot of external customer stories, so having an internal one is very exciting to listen to, and I definitely enjoyed that, knowing where your perspective comes from. You set us up through the whole storyline, so we knew this situation from beginning to end, which is a really great way to tell a story and answer the question. Along with that, you gave us all the little steps you did in between. You showed us that you went through the whole process of explaining it to them, empathizing with them, and doing everything that an employer wants to see, you connecting with the person, understanding where they're coming from, but also showing them what the outcome is and where you're going from there, so that you were able to walk them and us through those steps. Shows a lot of strengths on your part, so well done there.
Yes, the question was very, very well answered. I especially loved around how you took the situation, you were empathetic to the person, you know, and that's great whether it's internal or external, and you help them understand what was behind it, and that was fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, let's throw out another one. Okay, this question could typically be asked either specifically about the industry that the company's in, or it could be asked in general. And the question is, what traits do you believe a top performer has? What traits do you believe a top performer has?
Kylie, would you eval?
I think that each organization tends to have specific qualities they look for to allow their people to be successful. So it helps to be tuned into what those needs are within the organization. For example, if I'm in a data entry position and I'm in a back office, I may not need to be extremely people-oriented, friendly, and extroverted. I may need to be very detailed and prepared to work for long periods with high volumes of data. It's definitely a different skill set than if I were in the front office, customer facing, and needing to make people feel welcomed. So I think I would first analyze that for the organization that I'm considering joining, to identify perhaps 3 traits I could zero in on and say, do I have these qualities so that I could be an asset to this organization? And hopefully I do, and I can prove it during the interview. The one thing that I think is worth mentioning is every organization across the country and across the world benefits from people who are willing to listen, maybe willing to listen more than speak. Maybe there's a reason we were given 1 mouth and 2 ears. God was trying to tell us something. And also somebody who is able to work independently, but very collaborative with others, so that when those team projects come in and you have multiple personalities and needs and sometimes power struggles, people do that even without realizing it, that this is someone who can handle being in a teaming environment, but have enough self-initiative to do work they got to do independently. nobody should need to be babysat. I think that's something beneficial, whether you're in an entry level or you've reached a higher level. And so those two qualities come to mind. And I would always say someone who's willing to accept feedback, no matter how high or low, from shop floor to top floor. It would be great to have somebody who will hear feedback, not tune it out, and think of feedback like a GPS that's telling you you need to make a wrong turn, and not go, yeah, they're telling me I'm inadequate. They're, and seeing it as an insult rather than constructive criticism. It's to help you get to where you're going. So thank you for the question.
All right, Nina, that was a really great answer, because I think you did a good job of taking the question and first and foremost acknowledging that top quality is really going to vary depending on what is the role that either you're interviewing for or the company. But one thing I would keep in mind is the question did ask for what is the top quality. So I think you had a really good explanation for the qualities that you pointed out, because listening, feedback, and working independently are all really important qualities. And I think in a real world situation, you would be able to tailor to pick one of those qualities dependent upon what you were interviewing for. So I would just keep that in mind if, in a real world situation, taking that single quality and applying it to kind of like you started out with, to say that really depends, because if, like you said, a data entry is going to have, you're going to be looking for a different top quality versus a customer service or sales representative. So really good job explaining the why behind those two, because that's important for, I think, the companies to see.
Thank you so much. Really, really good point. I think I must have tuned out a little that he said top quality, not qualities.
Yeah, Nina, that was great. Thank you. And that is in the situation like this, it's a little more difficult to answer that versus when you're interviewing with a specific company. If you've done your research, you may have a pretty good idea about the answer they're looking for, because you'll know what the position is, you'll know the company, you'll know about the company, and you'll know what the company stands for and what they're all about. You can tailor that answer to the specific company. But in the general case that we had, that was a fantastic answer. All right. Mr. Toastmaster, how about we throw one more question out, see what we have here. All right, let's see. How about this one? How do you handle it when you're given negative feedback from a supervisor? Okay, well, Oscar, you volunteered earlier. You said you'd be willing to take it. I'll hand this one to you.
Well, thank
George,
you.
would you eval?
Yes.
No, I appreciate this question, and I can say honestly that I've handled it very poorly in the past, as far as having a reaction when I have negative feedback. But as a result of that, I've had a learning curve. So, because that was not necessarily the way to handle it. For me, when you get negative feedback, you often have to look at it that the people that point out your shortcomings and where you can work on are really gifts in your life. And when you walk up to that and they say, well, these are areas you have to work on, and that, rather than have that reaction that is almost instinctual and you want to fight back, is to take a step back and look at them from the perspective of thank you, because that's exactly what I need to work on, and this is the plan I'm putting in place to improve in those areas. So coming back full circle, pointing out how you're going to do that, and then committing to it, so they understand that you're willing to accept their coaching, you could say, and then put a plan together Like, these are the steps. And then ask their advice. Do you agree with that plan? So that they'll have some additional input. No, I would actually do it this way. And then be open to accepting that, and then, agreeing, so that that you're respectful and you're working with them, and together you'll be a team to produce better results.
Well, thank you, Oscar. I was wondering how I would answer that question, and you turned it nicely, because here's what I saw you do. If I were interviewing you, and I would want to know how you would react if I were putting you to work to negative feedback, and how you describe it in the past might be an indication to me as how you might do it in the future. But you turned it on its ear, because you said that you were looking to make it better and correct things and want their advice. So I got a good perception of your response to the question. That is to say, I was trying to see if you were going to get angry or something to negative feedback, but you showed that you're able to take the negative feedback and then turn it around and make a positive asset out of it.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, I guess I don't know if I'll hand this back either to our Toastmaster or to our whomever.
Our leader, our great leader, Rachel Lee. I'm happy to step in from here. We only have a few minutes. If you want to consider me the Toastmaster, what I'd love to do is just throw it to the floor, that in these last few minutes, anybody have something, underlying question, and this is the opportunity to ask Rodney something that didn't get answered, or you'd like a little expanding on.
Oscar, I would like to point out something that Rodney brought up earlier, and that is to do your research. Because one time, I think you've heard my story, where I had to do a panel interview, but I had like the sales manager, district manager, a branch manager, a safety manager, and the HR department was there too. But afterward, they told me that I should have done my research and figured out what kind of questions I might have for them when it comes to question and answer time. So that way I would have specific questions, because I had done my research and know how to better work it into the interview. Eric, go ahead. Yeah,
Eric,
Yeah, and on that note, I was wondering, because you did touch on it slightly, where would you suggest some of the best places to find out about companies are? You mentioned LinkedIn.
Absolutely, LinkedIn.
Company website. Are there any other places that you could think of?
I had a CPA friend have me link up with a CPA she was going to interview for a job, just so I could get his information and pass it on to her, so she didn't know she was doing her research. LinkedIn's a good one.
LinkedIn's a fantastic one. I really go to LinkedIn, look up people, look up the company, and then just Google them, see what's out there. Let the power of the search engine do the work for you.
Would you ever recommend maybe going by the company? I mean, I guess it would depend on the type of company, but potentially you could go by it and kind of see how they operate things. Like, say if it's a restaurant or something like that, you can maybe go and
if it's a public location, like a retail store or something where customers are coming and going, it certainly couldn't hurt to go in as a customer and see what kind of the vibe of the place is.
Okay. Thanks.
Do we have any other questions?
I actually do, yes.
Okay.
You mentioned in the presentation that you liked it when they had a pad and paper and they were taking notes along. I know that I've come with notes prepared, but as an interviewee, I always feel weird taking notes in the middle of the interview. So just like, is that appropriate? Is it common? And how do you, as an interviewee, go about doing that without feeling like you're not paying attention to them, you're just focusing on the notes?
It depends on the situation and the interview. Sometimes you may just have to feel it out. But the notepad isn't necessarily for taking detailed notes. it's about jotting a couple of things down. If you think of a question you want to ask, jotting 2 or 3 words down on the paper that will let you remember that in the future. If they say something about the company that you want to get more information about or draws your curiosity, again, like 2 or 3 words on the paper, just enough to let you remember to come back to whatever it is you want in the near future. Because I'll tell you, if you try to remember it and then you ask 4 more questions, or you answer 4 more questions, you're not going to remember what the question you had was.
On that note, I was curious what your opinion is on someone taking the notes on their phone, because sometimes you might be taking notes on the notepad portion of your phone, but it might look like you're just looking at your phone. So what's your opinion?
That's one of those that's really hard in today's world. Because so many people just do things on their phones, but it can be misconstrued by some people. And I do want to say, especially people of, let's say, more experience on this planet, can take it as you're just playing on your phone. Very few people will mistake if you've got a pen or pencil paper, and you jot a couple words down on the piece of paper in front of you. They're not going to think that you're not paying attention. They just like they know that you're in any conversation, especially in the business world, taking a note on a piece of paper is not unusual. Jotting notes on your phone can be. One thing I do is like, for me, I use my iPad and I have a little pencil that goes with it. So as I'm writing on that, it's still electronic, but they understand that I'm writing. I'm not like checking an email or anything.
I would think it would be perfectly fine to ask a question. Is it okay if I take some notes? And they're going to say yes every time.
Absolutely.
It's probably a good idea to turn your notifications off, like on your watch or something, because you might look at that if someone texts you.
Absolutely.
With that, being respectful of everybody's time, it is 12. And if Rodney maybe can stay for a few more minutes, if there's an additional question, but we do have a tradition of closing our Toastmaster meetings on time. So with that, I thank you very, 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 very much, Rodney, for coming all the way from Colorado via Zoom and giving us this. It's a gift to all of us. And I always say, if we just help one person a little bit, it's worth it. You never know.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. Okay. You're welcome. Boom. And I close the meeting. So with that, if you can stay a few more minutes, please. And there are any additional questions?
I'd be happy to stay for a few minutes if other people still have questions.
Okay. Is there another question in the group?
Well, if you guys do think of questions, we have another seminar coming up where we're going to pair you guys up and you'll get to practice mock interviews. More information of that will be coming out on our website, and we're going to also put up another Eventbrite meetup, and you can find us World Toasters 1971 on Facebook and Instagram, and we'll have all that information there for you guys. If you do want to stay connected with this, send me a direct message and I'll get you guys on email list, contact list, and we'll keep you all in touch about how this progresses. If you do want to see our past seminars, we have them up on YouTube, and I can also give you guys the YouTube playlist link so you can watch those. This one will be on that YouTube as well.